Hi everyone, and welcome back to Coachy TV. This is the second part of a video series on some strength type runs called short hill intervals. We're going to talk about the specific type of workout design in this video. If you missed our video on the science behind these workouts, I would click on that and watch it. It's in the description down below. I would watch that before this one. Let's go ahead and get to it. I am Kyle LaGiacono. I'm the head boys cross country and track coach at Wharton High School in Tampa, Florida, and I have been for the last 6 years. If you want to know a little bit more about my credentials, they are on the screen. So let's get into the actual workout design of these short hill intervals. So these workouts really should be a part of every microcycle during your general preparation and specific preparation phase. For cross-country season, that would be anything from June to August. After that, you would transition to a different type of strength workout, some very specific, race-specific type hills that I'll talk about in some future videos that are more long type hills. But these should be a staple of your workout design during that part of the training year, and then they should also be during your track season too, during the same corresponding period of their training year. Typically, these are good the day before or the day after a long run. I'm not talking about a recovery run. I'm talking about a true long run, the run that is 20 to 22% of your weekly mileage. We talked about that in our aerobic threshold video, which is also in the description down below. The reason why this is good to be as a trade-off from these is it trains a completely different aspect of your athlete. So if you're going in your long run, you're stretching them out to their longest aerobic capacity, 20 to 22% of the weekly volume, all in one shot. This is going to be the exact opposite kind of work. We're talking about strength and some speed development during this time of year and coordination versus just the repetitive miles, which you're trying to get as the training stimulus on the long day. Find the best place to set this up. Don't avoid it as you have it. Fit it in where you can. You can pretty much do anything before or after this. I wouldn't do a VO2 max test, but find the best setup for you as we get into this. Now, start with a good, complete warm-up, okay? So very few workouts during this part of the training year, general and specific prep, really require a true warm-up. A hard tempo run would, a VO2 max run definitely would, but your long and recovery type workouts really don't. All that really does is if you do a easy type of continuous run before it as part of your warm-up, you're really losing volume because that mile really doesn't do anything for you if you do a mile or whatever the time is, because it needs to be continuous for those aerobic adaptations that you're looking for at low intensity. This is a workout that definitely does require a complete warm-up. We're going to go fairly intense in this type of workout. And these are some of the first workouts that you're going to have this, so you're going to have the ability to maybe install and practice some of these routines, especially with newer kids. If you want to add anything to your warm-up, if your kids want to try out anything different for their warm-ups for them, this is the time to really start putting those things into place. Now, this is a interval type workout, meaning the rest is going to be incomplete, meaning you could give them more rest and you would have maybe a little bit better overall results in total. But an interval, which the interval describes the rest period. In order for a workout to be considered an interval workout, the rest does need to be incomplete. It means that they're being helped by the rest, but it's not full recovery. The way it's mostly defined is a substantial or a worthwhile rest, but not full recovery. If you saw our aerobic power workout video, we talked about the difference between intervals and repetitions. Intervals, you're getting probably 2/3 of the required rest that you would need for full recovery, versus if this was a repetition, you would give them much more rest in between for near complete recovery. So what you'd want to do is find a hill that isn't too steep, only 2 to 3% incline. That's about 120 to 200 meters in length. Anything in there and it'll work. Now, sometimes these are hard to come by. Here in Tampa, Florida, we have very, very flat ground, but even I found a place where we can do this on a very good, safe course. Just try to go more on if you had to go a little bit less on the incline, that's better. What you don't want is for this to be so steep that they're changing their running mechanics. We talked about this in the science video in part 1. You don't want them to have to just like jack their knees so high up that it's not specific to the way they would run in an actual race. Obviously in cross country there are going to be some hills, but for the most part the running mechanics are going to be your normal flat ground type running, and 2 to 3% incline just accents and makes that better for your athlete if it's just that small little incline. You don't want it to be any longer than this, because then you're going to actually have some negative consequences with this type of running. Each rep should be fast, but should be able to be replicated throughout. 30 to 45 seconds is a good target. Okay, what you don't want your kids to do is to try and run this first one in 29, 28. I've had kids go out on the first one and go 27 and then blow up to 47. These should be fairly tight windows. So if you've got a kid that can run the first one in like 31, they should probably be anywhere between 33 and 34 on their slowest ones. Maybe the last one's a little bit faster, but you're looking for some fast, consistent efforts on this. You're going to want them to jog back down about 2 to 4 minutes. I know that's going to be a slow jog. To get down at the bottom, just keep having them go back and forth, 2 to 4 minutes, and you're good. And if you do that jogging, this almost becomes a continuous run because then they hit the next one and they hit the next one, and you're getting a good maybe 20 minutes of almost continuous running. I would start with 4 to 5 reps. We just did our second round of this for this training year. We started with 4. The second time we did 5, and you're going to build up to 8 of these. I would add maybe 1 or 2 each time. Be a little bit more conservative on the front end of this until you see how they react to it. I'll say we were doing this during our track season, say about 6 months ago, and we were able to hit this, pretty hard early. They went 6 to 7, 8 of these pretty early, and we didn't have any issues. The first time we did it this year, for some reason, the kids were just a little bit more sore the day after for whatever reason. I did plan on this. We gave them a recovery run the day after, but you're definitely going to want to start conservatively until you see how the kids are actually going to react to it. And you're going to want to end with a 2 to 4 mile cool down. If you have this sort of continuous nature of uphill fast, jog back down, and then send them on a nice cool down, you can get a pretty good continuous run on this day. We talked about in the science of this that you're looking for the strength and the speed and the coordination development, but you can actually get some endurance work out of this too. So you're training, 4 of the 5 primary motor abilities here as opposed to just 3. If you add on a 2 to 4 mile cool down on the back end, it keeps the volume high. Also, if they had developed any acid, it would not require you to ice afterwards if you give them this long cool down afterward. So some look fors and danger points here. Make sure the hill is only 2 to 3%. This was 0.1 on the last slide, and it's 0.1 on this slide here. Think the size of a highway off-ramp. It should not be super steep. Too steep, and the running mechanics are no longer helpful for translation to racing. That is a very, very important thing when selecting your location. And again, very important, do not let them sprint out of the first one just to die. You're looking for strength, speed, and coordination development on these days. 3 of the 5 primary motor performance abilities. And that's going to take more than just one good rep. Look for consistency, 30 to 45 seconds for all. And make sure they're jogging between reps. This is going to clear any acid that's developed, and it creates this sort of aerobic development if they're sprinting up the hill and then jogging back down and they're never really stopping. As we mentioned, this is a bit of a speed development type workout. The long speed system does create acid. In the last slide here, we'll talk about how this is reduced because of the hill. But if any acid was developed on the 30 to 45 seconds, this would clear it. We've talked about this in some past videos, the idea that the anaerobic system creates hydrogen ions that is used by your aerobic system, the mitochondria, and how they produce their energy aerobically. And so this easy, slow, low intensity will clear any of the acid and help with the aerobic development. Make sure the course is safe. Very, very important. You are going to be going uphill on a course. Make sure that there's no holes. Don't just show up one day without having walked the course yourself. Make sure that it's free of holes and loose ground. I've actually heard and seen this workout executed in spikes, which could happen if you're trying to get them used to doing that. I don't do that. A lot of times my kids just absolutely hate running in spikes to begin with, but if you're looking for some of that and a little bit more intensity, you could spike them up with this, but if it's super loose ground with holes, that would not be a good idea. Make sure it's not really wet from rain maybe from the day before or whatever. Just make sure it's not really loose and slick. If it is, do a recovery run that day and come back maybe and do the hill runs the next day. This is best executed in a 4-week block. This is based on a study that I remember looking through previously. If you want the name of that study, go ahead and ask it in the comments down below. But basically it said that a 4-week block of strength runs like this, and then going away from them from 2 weeks is the best way to create the strength and speed development that you're looking for here. So 4 weeks on, 2 weeks off, that's probably part of your general preparation phase and bleeding into your specific prep phase, and then you can go back to them for another 4-week block. If you started soon enough, beginning of June, you can get 2 of these 4-week on blocks and a 2-week off in between to where you can get 2 of these strength cycles in during maybe your 2 mesocycles during general prep. And then you would maybe transition to long hills that we're going to talk about here in a future video. So some key takeaway points here to wrap up. Strength/short hill runs are a great way to start speed development. A lot of times we're just dealing with aerobic and endurance of the motor performance abilities here in general preparation, and that's obviously the most important thing. We talked about that in the first video when we looked at the science of this and the energy demands of these different events. But you don't want to just ignore some of these other primary motor abilities. You need to have the right combination of all five, and this is a great way to have a little bit of that development as well as building some strength and coordination. And if you do it right with a cool down, you're not going to lose any volume on these days, and you can still develop their endurance. Adaptations for runners include, this is what you want to have happen. The designed adaptation to this workout is the improved strength, touching on some speed, and improved running mechanics. This incline, you have the 2 to 3%, just that little bit, keeps the intensity low enough to where there's going to be very little, if any, acid development. That anaerobic glycolytic system, the long speed system, is just barely going to be activated, just barely touched on. So it's going to keep the intensity in check, and there's not going to be any acid. In a previous video, we talked about how the aerobic system is really powered by mitochondria, and mitochondria can be damaged by too much acid. So that's also not going to be an issue here, because the acid is just not going to be produced because of the slight incline of the hill that you're using. So you're not going to have that issue, but you're going to be able to start touching on speed and strength. Start small, maybe 4 to 6 reps, and then build to 8. Maybe you have your younger kids that's never done any speed development before, just do 4. You could have your more seasoned kids do 6. If you go all the way out to 8, you could give these to them in sets of 4 and 4 with more of a longer jog in between. Instead of 2 to 4 minutes in between, maybe you give them 5 minutes of an easy jog before you hit the second half of the workout. These should be fast but consistent, 30 to 45 seconds. And they should be part of every microcycle during general preparation and specific phases for the most part. We talked about going 4 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and then 4 weeks back on. You want to have this be a part of most, if not every, microcycle during these conditioning phases of your season, in the same way that you need a long run, multiple recovery runs, and tempo runs, and those types of things. This should be a staple of this part of the year. And again, you can add a long cool down of 2 to 4 miles. We talked about the idea that of the 5 motor performance abilities, you're building strength, speed, and this is touching on coordination, running mechanics. And you can also get an aerobic or an endurance type base, another one of the motor performance abilities here, to allow for some more aerobic development to continue when that's the emphasis of these mesocycles, these portions of your training year. And if you've got a good stretching routine afterwards, you could get some flexibility in there, so you could get all 5 in one, which is very rare for for any one workout to be able to fit all these 5 motor performance abilities into place. So that's the training design for short hill or strength type runs. We'll talk about some long hills here in the next few days. If you like this video, please think about liking or subscribing and commenting down below. Until next time, this has been Coachy TV.